Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Just wait for you all to join. I hope you're having a lovely afternoon and that the sun is shining wherever you are. A very warm welcome to today's webinar, all about subquotes v simple quotes and simplifying your opportunity-driven sales. I'm Abby. I'm a customer success manager here at ProspectSoft. I'm sure many of you know me by now. If you don't, hello, welcome. And I've been with the company now for perhaps 3 years, I think. So yeah, should be a fun webinar today. The general way these go, I will go through the slide deck, do a webinar. If you have any, do a demo, sorry. And if you had any questions, please do feel free to put them in the Q&A section below. It can be questions about today's webinar, any general CRM questions you have. I'm very happy to help. Today's webinar is going to be fairly quick. It is, as you can see from the agenda, mainly just helping you understand the two differences between our two different type of quotes. So we have a subquote and a simple quote. I'm sure the majority of you probably don't even realize we have two different quotes. So my job here is to explain the differences between them, to explore why you would use one over the other, and to also then explain a little bit on the reporting side. So if you had any questions, please do feel free to leave them below, and I'll get around to them at the end. So a quick key takeaways. It is mainly just to help you guys understand a little bit more about Prospect CRM quoting. It's kind of there for enhanced data visibility and easily tracking and managing each stage of your quoting. The two different type of quote records we have, subquotes and simple quotes, they do give you the exact same information. You'll still be able to report on the exact same fields. It's really mainly the difference between your business needs and which strategy works best for the way your business quotes. And so I'll be kind of going through that and explaining why you would choose one over the other. And yeah, obviously going through the reporting differences as well. And yeah, let's go straight on to the demo. Not a long one today at all. So if we have a look, we are in the CRM. Hopefully everyone can see that. And I'm just on the quotes report here. So this is just your standard quote search report. And you'll notice I have our two different type of quotes already up here. So for ease, I've given them two different descriptions. Up here is a subquote, here is a simple quote, and to throw a spanner in the works, we actually have a third type of quote, which is a sales order, which is slightly different. So I'll mention that at the end to try and not confuse things, because it is very confusing because the differences are just that minor. But up here, you'll see subquote, simple quote. And to start off with the reporting aspect of this, you'll notice they are two different or three different types of quotes, but for reporting wise, they are exactly the same. You'll have access to the exact same fields. And when you create a report on quotes, say you're doing kind of forecasting or just wanting to know how much value you perhaps had for the month or something, they will all come up in the same report. There's no need to, if you want to switch to one or the other, the reports will all report the same thing. So that at least makes it a little bit easier. So really the differences are how you work and the kind of business strategy that you take on. So to start things off simply, we will start with the simple quote. This is what probably the majority of our customers use, to be honest, and is probably what most of you have been using without even realizing it. So if I go into the simple quote here, you will notice it looks a lot like a quote. So you can add your products here. You've got a description, customer order reference here, status, communication. I've done no customizations to this record screen. So this is the pretty kind of standard out of the box, what it looks like. You can confirm the quote and you've got pipelines up here. So I suppose the first question is, how do I know this is a simple quote? So there are two main differences between subquote and simple quote. One of the main ones being simple quotes, if you look up at the breadcrumbs here, are under a contact or company directly. So it's not under an opportunity, at least visibly, I suppose. It's not under an opportunity, it is under the contact directly, and it can also be under a company directly. Now, the reason I say kind of visibly it's not under an opportunity is because it's really important that you realize it does still have an opportunity. So, say you're reporting on opportunity, it will still show up in that report. You will still, if you're wanting to see how many opportunities were created for the month, you will still see this under an opportunity report because actually a simple quote is an opportunity record and a quote record kind of merged into one user interface, into one record that you can see. So I know this is a simple quote because it's not visibly under an opportunity. And if I was to go into the details page, you'll notice there's an activity timeline where you can add tasks. You'll also see that there are fields like gatometer and objective, opportunity estimator close, opportunity analysis field. So you've still got access to all of your opportunity records because, as I said, there is still an opportunity here. It's just not a separate record. So I suppose that's probably one of the main reasons our customers mostly use simple quotes is because the idea of having an opportunity as a separate record to the actual quote, it's perhaps a little bit archaic, maybe. And certainly for scenarios where you've got maybe more project-based quoting, where you'll have quite a few different quotes or quite a lot of communication, you'll generally want to have two separate records. But the majority of processes these days, I would say, don't really need that. And that's why we kind of have the simple quote. So I'll show you a subquote in a moment, but that's kind of the history behind it, I suppose, in that we kind of wanted a quote that was a bit quicker and a bit simpler to use. So you've still got access to things like setting the gatometer objective, you've still got kind of estimated close, but actually you don't need to be flicking between two records. You know, you don't need to be going to a separate record to put a note or write an email. You can do that straight from the quote. It's a lot simpler, it's a lot quicker, it's a lot more streamlined, but you can still access all of the benefits of having an opportunity, such as having different pipelines and adding the activity note, adding tasks. Um, but the only downside, I suppose, a downside to some, a plus to others, is that you can only have kind of one quote to that opportunity. So a simple quote is just one opportunity, is one quote. You kind of add all of your communication. Once you confirm the quote, that's kind of it. If the customer wanted to buy again, or if there was, you know, a change in the quote or something, then you'd have to raise a whole new simple quote. Whereas if we go ahead and come out of here and go into my subquote, you can have multiple subquotes under one opportunity. So if we look up here at the breadcrumbs, you'll notice this quote is under an opportunity record. So I know this is a subquote. And if I go onto the details page, the activity timeline is not there. And you can't set a task against this quote because all of that is done on the opportunity record. The rest of it is, you know, this quote is now just for really adding your products, perhaps sending out the actual quote document itself, but any notes or any general kind of information would be put on the opportunity record, which you can access obviously just by clicking here. But if you know you don't really need to be creating multiple quotes or having that separation, there's kind of no need to have that extra click or extra complexity of going between the two. You can just use the simple quotes. But as I said, the important thing about subquotes is that you can have multiple quotes under one opportunity. So this is really great if you do more project-based things. So, you know, where you have phases where the customer might buy table and chairs as the first phase, and then in 2 weeks' time, they'll be buying bookcases and etc. You kind of want it all to be on one opportunity record because obviously that's where your main notes are, the main communication with the customer is. You don't really want to have separate ones of those because ultimately it's one project, but you're going to be quoting them at different times for different things. So you kind of want to have those as separate quotes, but related to one opportunity record where it's kind of the centralized communication of it all. So that's a scenario where you would want to have it as a opportunity and subquote. Whereas, you know, if you're looking for something a bit quicker, a little less complex, one where it's a lot more kind of you just add the products, send that off to the customer. The customer's more than likely going to confirm it or make minor tweaks, and then it's going to be confirmed. You can use the simple quote. Whereas subquotes and opportunities are a little bit longer process, a little bit more detailed. But as I said, it's really important to remember that you won't lose any of this opportunity functionality if you use the simple quotes. You've still got it there to be used. If we go back to the simple quote, as I said before, if we have a look at the details page, you'll still see all of these opportunity fields are still here for you to use. So for example, if we go and customize this record and add some fields, you'll be able to see you can add in all of the opportunity fields here. So you can completely customize it so you can still see those fields and still use them, but you don't have the kind of annoyance of having to go into the opportunity to change things and kind of going back and forth and having 2 records to manage. With a simple quote, you'd have them all in one, which is really great. But sometimes you kind of need that. So it's totally up to you, and it's totally up to how your business operates as to which would be best. There's kind of not a one size fits all, but I would say that the majority of our customers do use these simple quotes, and you probably do so, as I said right at the beginning, without even realizing. So the kind of way you create these is if you're on a contact and you're going to raise a quote, this is going to create a simple quote for you automatically. This is, you don't even have to think about it. Whereas if you create an opportunity and then obviously add in a quote, that's going to be a subquote. So it kind of depends right at the beginning which record you're creating first as to which quote would then be used. Now, obviously, if you create an opportunity and then decide, or you did it by accident, or you decide actually I want it to be a simple quote, all you need to do is click the convert to quote button, and this will convert your opportunity into a simple quote where you've then got just that one quote all in one record screen. And yeah, so then if you make that mistake, you can kind of switch back. And if we go to the simple quote and the 3-dot menu, you have the convert to subquote button. So if you've created it as a simple quote, which is directly under the contact where you've got the activity and the task all on one screen, but you think, oh, this customer is actually going to order in a month's time and it is related to this opportunity, I kind of want to keep it all in one place, then you've got that option to actually convert it out into a subquote where you've got 2 different records. So if you make one by mistake or you want to change your mind, fine, you can kind of manage that within the CRM quite easily. So those are the differences. I don't think I've missed anything out. Something to note with the customizer is that these are 2 different records. So if, for example, I went and customized this, which is the subquote, I think, no, I'm on the simple quote. If I was to add a field to this layout, so say I add salesperson there, if I save that and come out here, this will have added it to my simple quote, or at least it was meant to somewhere. I definitely thought I added it in. If I added a field to my simple quote, then it won't show on a subquote. So if you're making changes to the customization, make sure you've kind of got to do it in both places. Obviously, if you're using both type of records. If you're only using one, then obviously it shouldn't be a problem. If, for example, you wanted your users to only ever use one type, because I understand it's slightly confusing, it's great that we've got 2 options, but it's not really very simple as to obvious as to which are the 2 different types. And so if you want to make it really simple and just say, okay, they can only ever make one type, you can actually do that. So if we go into settings here, system settings, and go to record creation, yes, that's it, and click to configure. This is where you can actually configure which entities can be created at different stages. So if we scroll down, you'll notice we've got quote and quote. We've made it really easy to define the two different options. We've got quotation here and quote. If I remember correctly, quotation is the simple quote and quote is the subquote. I have referred this to product to see if they can make it a little bit easier because that terminology is very confusing and people forget all the time which one's which. But anyway, if you wanted to say only ever create subquotes, so you wanted to mandate that your users have to create the opportunity and the quote separately as two separate records, what I would suggest you do is actually turning off the ability to then create simple quotes. And you would do this by saying, no, I don't want this creation to be shown on entity. No, I don't want this to be shown globally. So this will now, if we have a look here, you'll notice that there are two quotes showing here. Again, confusing, I know, but I've just turned that off. So if I come out of there and I refresh the system, you'll see that only one quote comes up. And actually, if we then go to a contact record, again, the kind of simple quote won't show. So as if by magic, you've now only got one quote being able to be created from here. And if we go to the contact record and click the plus button here, you'll notice there is not a button to create a quote. And that's because I don't want my users creating a simple quote. I only want them creating an opportunity and then subquotes below that. So that's the process what I would do to kind of help make it a little bit easier. If, for example, you only wanted simple quotes, then you could do the same for opportunity. Perhaps you just get rid of that entirely. The same with sales order. So as a reminder, that's a system setting called creation or record creation it is. And you just click to configure. And you can also do this for different types of entities. So perhaps for some reason you don't want documents to be created, you could turn that off. Opportunities, you could turn that off as well. And you can choose to turn it off globally. So where it says globally, it means the global create button up here. And when it shows on entity, that's where the plus button was on the contact record that I just demonstrated. So I want to show all of this for yes, and then go back. But yeah, by default, I believe the global create button shows the simple quote creation button. So that's, if you're unsure which one you're using, you're more than likely going to be creating the simple quotes, which is the quotes that is not under a opportunity. Well, it is under an opportunity, but it's not visibly under an opportunity. It's one record, no, two records within one. See, I'm confusing myself now. Two records within one is a simple quote. Subquotes are where they're under the opportunity. Okay, and you can kind of turn that on and off. Now, finally, just to kind of go over again, the reporting side of things, as you'll notice, I'm in the quotes report here, and I can see both. So from a reporting standpoint, it's really easy. It makes no difference which one you use. They are both quotes, and they will both have an opportunity associated with them. So it's not going to change any of your reporting. You don't need to create different reports for them. It's just there, ready for you to use. Now, if I was to go onto the opportunities report, you will notice that I have the opportunity record here, which is what has my subquote under. And if I go back to opportunities, you'll also see that my simple quote is also within this report. Now, I think this is where some people get slightly confused because they wouldn't necessarily class that quote as an opportunity. But obviously, as I mentioned, it's an opportunity record and a quote record in one layout. And so because it still has that opportunity record, it's going to show in your opportunity reports, which is good for some people, perhaps not so good for others. The way I would usually recommend people to kind of manage this, so if you wanted a report that is only your opportunities that don't have any quotes, for example, I would say using the opportunity type field is how you're going to be able to distinguish this. So this is my simple quote, and I can see it's got a type of quote. If I look down here, these two quotes are also simple quotes because they've got the type quote. Whereas if I was going, and that says test opportunity, but if I was to go into this one, you'll notice this is an opportunity, and that's because it doesn't have the type quote. You can also configure your opportunity types. So here, you can configure them. So perhaps you also wanted to use this as a way to distinguish different types of opportunities. You can do so, but I always recommend people have a type of quote so then they can use that to identify which is a simple quote and which is an actual opportunity. And then, of course, you can report on that field. So filter it out or group by that or etc. Just makes it a bit easier because the more information, the more data you've got there, kind of the deeper you can dive with your reporting. So that's generally how I recommend it. You've also got on the simple quotes, as I mentioned, the ability to have pipelines here. So these are actually managed within the opportunity pipeline system setting. So what some people might want to do, as we have here in this demo system, is a quick quote pipeline. So that would be generally used by your simple quotes, and you can have kind of the default type to be set as quote. So again, then your users don't even have to remember to set the type to quote. It would just kind of happen automatically, and you can configure those pipelines in system settings. So yeah, you would generally do that. And then if you also wanted to report on pipelines, that's another way to distinguish whether it's a simple quote or an opportunity. But yeah, that is subquotes v simple quotes. Now, the spanner in the works, which I mentioned, if we go back to the quote report, is sales orders. So not too many customers use sales orders. They are what I would say a little bit more niche. Now, if we remember, a subquote is for situations where you've perhaps got a project going on or a very long, lengthy communication with the customer, you would want to use a subquote. If you've got a simple quote where it's just going to be one quote for this one opportunity, a little bit of communication going back and forth, then you would use your simple quote because ultimately it is quicker. It's a lot easier to manage from a user's perspective. But if you wanted one that's even quicker than that, even simpler, you would use the sales order. This is very stripped back. As you can see, there's not much on here because the idea is that you would use this record if the customer has already given you the heads up, the approval to confirm this quote. You already know what products they want to buy. All you need to do is actually put them on, click confirm, and go. You don't need to have any communication with the customer, or perhaps the customer's already, sent you communication that you don't really need to kind of action. It's really simple. The idea is you create it and confirm it kind of at the same time or discard it. If we go on to details, you'll notice that you can't have any activity notes, you can't have tasks because it really is quick. It's a sales order. You're kind of putting it into the system as soon as you're creating it. So much so that if I was to actually click exit off here, it will prompt you to confirm or discard the order. I don't have any lines on this one, so I can't actually confirm it, but that's kind of really you're not meant to have these sat around for days or even hours. It really is, you create it, you confirm it, go. I'm going to say keep. So that's kind of a curveball in there. That's there for very unique situations, but it's still good to have that visibility. And yeah, not much else to say on that one. So that is pretty much the differences, how you can tell the difference, why you would use one over the other. As I said, it really is kind of personal preference in terms of how your company is run, what strategy you're going for. In my opinion, it's much easier to just stick with simple quotes and not really touch subquotes. Subquotes and opportunities because you have the exact same functionality in simple quotes. Why would you want the complexity of having an opportunity record separate to the quote? It makes a lot more sense having it all in one screen, one area for you to use. But obviously there are situations where you would want to use one. So yeah, as I said, a very quick webinar today. If you have any questions, please put them in the Q&A section below. And yeah, it can be questions on simple quotes v subquotes, or it can be CRM questions in general. anything you need help on, please let me know. But otherwise, that is the end of today's webinar. You can always go and have a look at the webinars we have upcoming and any previous webinars on our website or on our YouTube. If you have any suggestions on future webinars you'd like to see, please also put them in the comments below. There's should be a Q&A section or a chat option. If you just leave any suggestions you have, please do. I think we're planning our upcoming series now, so it would be really great to hear from you. But yeah, otherwise, have a fantastic day, and I'm sure you will hear from me